thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, you guys. It is Thursday, February 26, 2026. And today is National Carpe Diem Day today.
Okay.
All right. Okay. It is also, Dale, National Chili Day.
I like some good chili.
Yes, and it's not just because baby is cold outside. You know what I'm saying?
Cornbread and chili.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Why are you doing that? There we go. Weird. All right. Let's see. What else we got today? It's National Toast Day. I have a feeling that this is in regards with actual toast, ale and not the act of toasting.
Yeah, sounds like bread you put into a toaster and put some butter and jam on or something.
Yeah, exactly. I would prefer if it was about money, personally. Just it would make it better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, most things do better when you have money in your pocket.
Yeah, everybody
engage in the activity, right?
That's right. Everybody loves bread. Yes. It's also National Small Dog Day.
Yeah. I had big dogs and ankle nippers, as I call them. We had them, but
they're cute.
It wasn't like the big 100-pound dog I had to go out with the kids because there was a mountain lion on the property.
Yeah. They're cute. I like little dogs. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at little dogs. They're you know what I'm saying? I like teacup Yorkies, though they have a lot of personality. You know, those are good little dogs. Yeah. Little Chihuahua dogs I could, not that much of a fan of. It's also National Letter to an Elder Day, Dale. So everybody,
I'm not giving out an address. I don't want any letters. Thank you.
Everybody, please make sure that you send Dale a letter today, please, because it is National Letter to an Elder Day.
Definitely an elder.
All the girls will love this one. It's National Tell a Fairy Tale Day. Prince Charming is on his way on his stallion in his suit of armor.
Advice for women is what I give to my daughters. Be careful of Prince Charming.
Yeah.
He's hiding something.
Fair enough.
Let's be careful.
It's also National Pistachio Day today, Dale.
Not a fan of pistachios, but hey, we grow them here in the valley and makes money. People like them. Hey,
I like pistachios. I like pistachios personally. But the one thing I found out is that they're like the most fattening nut of all the nuts.
Okay. I'm sure that was good back in the hunter-gatherer days when you wanted to put on plastic fat for the winter.
Yeah.
But every meal you have puts on plastic fat, so
exactly.
What are you going to cut out?
Yeah, especially when it's National Toast Day. All those carbs, Dale.
Oh, yeah. Pick your poison, dude. Pick your poison.
Yep. And last but not least, Today you're going to love this, Dale. This is definitely for you. National Set a Good Example Day today.
Oh, please.
Yeah. And on
My
that,
little grandson, when me and his dad are cussing, he goes, "Papa, you can't say that word." Oh, sorry. Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes. And on
Try
that,
to keep me in line.
yep. And thank
You can't do it. So.
And thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website, www.highat9news.com. So welcome everyone joining us from whatever platform they're joining us from. And speaking of joining us, Jenny Beth should be joining us sometime soon, you guys. And Stone Slade had a back appointment today, so we hope he's all right. Everything's okay with him at the back doctors today. And Nate Winokur is actually moving to Orange County today. He's going to get to experience like actual freedom. So congratulations, Nate, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Hope the new house is fantastic and you guys get all moved in all hunky-dorily. And on that, Dale, a Florida House committee unanimously approves a bill to cut medical marijuana card fee for veterans by 80%. This is great news. A measure that would substantially lower the cost for military veterans to obtain a medical marijuana card in Florida was approved today by the House Health and Human Services Committee by a vote of 22-0. House Bill 887 cleared the committee in a unanimous 22-0 vote, sending it to the full House for consideration. The legislation is sponsored by Representative Susan Valdez, a Republican, and Michelle Salzman, also a Republican. If enacted, the bill would reduce the medical marijuana registry identification card fee for honorably discharged veterans from $75 to $15. That's great. An 80% decrease. The lower cost would apply not only to initial applications, but also to annual renewals and replacement cards issued by the Department of Health. Under the proposal, veterans would be required to provide documentation verifying their service in order to qualify for the discount fee, and acceptable forms of proof would include discharge paperwork, a Veterans Affairs identification card, or a Florida driver's license that includes a veteran designation. The measure is designed to ease financial barriers for veterans participating in the state's medical marijuana program, and if approved by the full legislature and signed into law, the change would take effect as of July 1st, right in time for the 4th of July. Look at that, Dale. We're starting off with some good news for veterans out there in the great red state of Florida. I am so excited about this bill. I imagine it will pass. It's introduced by 2 Republicans. Florida is pretty much a very, very red state, even in the state legislature. And so what do you have to say about this, Dale?
Well, as a veteran, I think it's a good move. Because, I mean, we're constantly fighting for veterans' rights. I mean, we raised our hand, put our life in the hands of the country. We come back and we're not always treated as we were told we were going to be treated. So this is a good thing. And it also points out to me one of the struggles we have here in California, and I think other states, is that they charge fees for things that are more than what it costs to run the program. In other words, they're revenue generating, okay? And it's a form of a tax rather than just a fee for a service. And it gets caught up in this. Does it really cost $75 for them to process your medical marijuana card? I don't know. If they can give it to a veteran for $15, is that what it's really costing you? The stuff and the rest in your pocket?
Well, you know, Dale, you're being a little negative right there. It may just be subsidized. They may be making enough money off the cards from other people paying it to where they can offer it to them at that low price.
And if that's the case, then if we're going to put the thumb on the scale for veterans, I'm all for that. Okay. But what we've fought out here in California, and I'm sure you remember this Prop 13, and then we had Prop 218, and we had like 67 and 24. All of it was to try to nail down these local governments being revenue generating fees. And we finally had to be specific. If it raises money, you got to go to the voters. Okay. And you got to account for it. There's very few exceptions, because that's, a way that they squeeze more money out of people here in California, charging exorbitant fees that are way more than what it costs to actually run a program. I'm okay with charging what it costs. If you want something for the government, here's what it costs to provide the service. The rest of us shouldn't be subsidizing everything that you do. But it turns into a game to raise money, and it's the form of a tax. And I don't like sneaky taxes.
I do like too, Dale, that it seems like they're making it very easy on these veterans to be able to prove their veteran status, whether their discharge paperwork, the Veterans Administration ID card. Or if you're on your driver's license, it says that. To me, that's like, it doesn't get much easier to qualify than that. I mean, I think probably the only way they can make it easier is if you wore a veteran's hat into the office and self-certify. That'd be the only easier way to do it.
I can tell you that I have a copy of my DD-214, which is foundational document when you served and your discharge status, honorable, just all that stuff. Okay, that's a big that's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper usually. And what I did in California, I took that to the DMV and they added veteran to my license, so it makes it easier. And what I'll tell you, the veteran community is not complaining that, you make us have an ID and you make it so hard, because that's a complaint that, I don't want to rain everybody's parade, but we hear that a lot, that we have to get an ID, it's unfair. The veterans community is like, come on. Stop it. We're not complaining about that. Requiring people to have ID is almost universal unless you bring up the issue of voting, and then, oh my God, we can't have an ID in a voting, and the arguments don't really sync up.
They make no sense, right? They make no sense.
Well, I mean, I understand some of the logic about it.
Come on, Dale.
It's not that hard to imagine that you could, if you're poor and you need a card, we'll give you one for free. Drag your ass down here, find your birth certificate or whatever is your foundational identification, and then we'll give you something that can be used. I don't think that is like outside the realm of possibility for the vast majority of people. We all got them anyway. You got to have a driver's license to drive a car.
Yeah.
And there are things like that. So from the veteran community, we're not going to complain that we have to get identification or some verification or proof. It's not that hard to get.
Yep, fair enough. Well, on that, we're going to roll into our first commercial. Congratulations, Florida. I hope this moves forward, and veterans going to get some much needed relief financially, and I think this is a great way to start the show. Fair enough. Well, I have another story for you, Dale. And you know what? Marijuana Moment, I always complain about them being a kind of a lefty-leaning kind of publication and whatnot. But I think that this piece that I'm about to cover, in full transparency, it's not the full article. If you want to read the full article, you can go to our website at www.high9news.com and check it out over there. Basically, I think that this is fair criticism on their part. I think it's a fair criticism, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about. Dale. Because Trump, they say, missed an opportunity to promote marijuana rescheduling during the State of the Union, industry leader says. That's right. President Donald J. Trump delivered, and they're saying lengthy, but I think it was amazing, State of the Union address on Tuesday, touching on a wide range of policy issues he championed in the first year of his second term. But to the disappointment of advocates and stakeholders, the president did not take the primetime opportunity to promote his work around cannabis rescheduling. Trump did bring up drugs in the context of militarized enforcement actions targeting alleged traffickers, preventing fentanyl smuggling across the border, and addressing pharmaceutical costs. Yet, despite the bipartisan popularity of cannabis reform, he declined to mention a December executive order he issued directing the Attorney General Pam Bondi to expeditiously complete the process of moving cannabis from a Schedule I to a Schedule III drug of the Controlled Substances Act. That hasn't happened yet, and the Justice Department has been largely silent on the issue in the weeks since Trump signed the order, and some hoped the president would use the high-profile speech before a joint session of Congress to reiterate his directive to finalize the rulemaking, but the issue was ignored altogether. Adam Rosenberg, chairman of the National Cannabis Industry Association, the NCIA, said after the speech that the State of the Union represented missed an opportunity to highlight a major gap between federal policy and state law. Nearly every state has legalized cannabis in some form, yet federal rules continue to create uncertainty for legitimate operators. The industry has heard promises before, including support for rescheduling. What's missing is delivery, he said. Federal inaction continues to punish state legal businesses with punitive tax treatment and banking barriers, while the illicit market operates without consequence, and that imbalance is unsustainable, he says. Marijuana Moment asked the White House whether the president planned to bring up cannabis rescheduling prior to the State of the Union speech, but a spokesperson simply pointed to a statement from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. The generally described Trump's intent to discuss the administration's many record-breaking accomplishments and his ambitious agenda to continue bringing the American dream back for working people. Separately, as the Trump administration works to finalize the rescheduling proposal and prepares to roll out a CBD coverage plan through Medicare under the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, better known as CMS, the head of that agency, Dr. Mehmet Oz, recently raised concerns about non-intoxicating cannabidiol and hemp products overall. And Oz said this month that, in quotes, "There are going to be consequences as more Americans choose marijuana over alcohol, including problems caused by high-dose hemp and CBD," he says. I think that may have been taken out of context, but okay. And former Representative Matt Gaetz, my friend, and someone whose show I appear on One American News, Trump's first pick for Attorney General this term, who ultimately withdrew his nomination, raised eyebrows last week after posting on X that he's been told the Drug Enforcement Administration is actively drafting a rescheduling rule and intended to issue it ASAP. There is some confusion around that point, however, as a rule is already pending before the Justice Department, and a new rule would presumably be subject to additional administrative review and public comment, they say. Well, I think that this is some fair criticism that the president did not mention this during the State of the Union. But Dale, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this, and I'm going to go into some more of my thoughts as well.
Okay, well, I think in our industry, we see the cannabis hemp issue and what's happening to people and businesses as, an existential threat. We can identify it, we see that. But when you get to the state and federal level, we are on a list of people that think that what's happening is existential to them, and prioritizing that. I mean, it's disappointing, but we got to give props that, he issued an executive order what brought us to the front. He's the front of everybody's attention. He also signed the bill, which included, we're going to do something about hemp. He's got the train rolling. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody has a clear, concise understanding of what we're going to do with the issue of drugs. That's where this falls into. I mean, if you take a look at Central and South America, from Venezuela and their, involvement, and then what's happening in Mexico with the Mexican cartels thinking that, the government can't tell them what to do, will kill you. It points out some problems that we don't have an answer for here in the United States. I think most people agree that cannabis is a softer drug, if you're going to use that term and put us into that category. But we all agree that we don't want people trafficking in hard drugs. And it's very difficult to find a dividing line in here that people agree on. And I don't know if he could have expressed a cohesive plan of what to do with it, and pointing out, the problems we have with drug trafficking in our hemisphere. It opens a can of worms that, I prefer that before you go out and start talking, you have a plan. I know that it's pretty impulsive, but they wrote a speech for him. So anyway, that's my basic impression. And, I honestly don't watch the State of the Union anymore. It's kabuki theater. I haven't watched it for a long time because you get, performative things going on. And it's like, come on. I don't know what we accomplish, but here we are.
Oh man, I thought it was a phenomenal speech, and and just to go back onto my thought of believing that that comment from Dr. Oz was taken out of context. Thanks to Brian Dombrowski in the chat, who says completely out of context. The question was, do you think we will eventually see long-term health consequences from cannabis use the way we have with alcohol? Or are the risks fundamentally different? And so that was what he was answering to. So thank you for providing that, Brian Dombrowski. We definitely appreciate that very, very much. So, but this is the thing, Dale. Trump did, to me, this speech was fantastic. And if he didn't bring up cannabis and rescheduling, to me, that really wasn't the appropriate place to bring it up in the first place, because it's not a issue before Congress. Okay, so all of the cannabis guys that are in the chat that are, he didn't bring it up, how he's the most pro-cannabis, He's done more pro-cannabis than any other president has. That's just is what it is. And you can be a denier if you want of the truth and of the facts. That's totally fine and totally all good. But the reality of it is that wasn't the appropriate venue to bring that up. That is not the appropriate venue for him to say, hey, Pam Bondi, get on your job and do your job and get this done. That's not the appropriate venue. And because it's not going before Congress, it's not the appropriate place to bring that up or make it a talking point as well. But Trump did do one of the ultimate troll moves that I don't think a lot of people caught on. So the Trump State of the Union speech was for 107 minutes, Dale. You know what 107 minutes means? 1 hour and 47 minutes, meaning he's the number one president while being number 47. And that's the ultimate little troll move. So shout out to the president for that. That was miraculous. That was pretty good. Okay. Well, whatever your point was there, I missed it.
It's okay. It's okay. I didn't expect you to get it. You know what I mean? But the people on the internet will definitely understand what I'm talking about. But I think we all understand that this sort of thorny issue about what to do with this cannabis plant is in the thoughts of Congress right now. I mean, even if it goes to Schedule 3, that's not the end of it. There's other things Congress is going to have to do, and the hemp issue is something Congress is going to have to do. And myself, I think that people now understand that this is not fentanyl. We should stop thinking about it like that. And can we come up with a more cohesive and understandable plan before you go rolling it out? Okay. Because that just has never worked.
Yep.
And this is going to require that we have bipartisan meetings, keep the press out, shut the door, get some beer and pizza, and for God's sakes, can you sit down and work out a way to address what the American people seem to want and dovetail it into our lack of understanding of what to do with these serious and hard drugs. And, let's see if we can come up with something comprehensive. I understand Adam. I know Adam. And, he wanted this to be on there. We're all wishing and hoping it would get front stage. But if it doesn't, don't think like the movement's been torpedoed now.
Exactly.
This is incremental stuff. As much as we'd like to have it all solved right now, I mean, my family did alcohol. Okay, it took 20 years for California to finally figure out, well, what are we going to do with alcohol because our first shot didn't work. So we're still in that sort of a category. And looking back at some point, we'll think this was stupid. Why'd you fight about this stuff? But we're in the middle of change, and change is hard. And we all want people to do and say and be certain things. And, they don't meet our needs and we're upset about it. But cannabis is not the number one issue in America.
You know, you do bring up an interesting point on that, Dale, is that, yeah, he could have, while talking to Congress, said, hey, you know what, we need to update the Farm Bill and we need to get it. And then he could have mentioned that that the disastrous plan that's currently in place as far as the total THC ban, he could have mentioned that. I think that's a fair criticism too. He could have mentioned it there as calling for the Farm Bill, because that would have been direct communication to all the farmers across America. I think he may. I think that would have been a far better criticism than saying how come he wasn't promoting Schedule 3. Because to me that wasn't the right address. But I think if they would have criticized him for that, I think that would have been a far better criticism than even this.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, I mean, the Congress is full of petulant children right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do when you walk into a room full of petulant children?
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what you do, someone's going to be critical. You're too hard. You're too soft.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't get the feeling Donald Trump's afraid to be hard.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, things that if you're a snowflake or you need trigger warnings,
mm-hmm.
you know, there's a trigger warning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's something we have to deal with. And, you know, I'm a bit of a historian, and he's not the first one who has gone head to head with groups and, you know, past practices and things like that. You know, you should read about Andy Jackson and what, you know, Abe Lincoln did and things like that. Teddy Roosevelt.
I'm a big fan of Andrew Jackson
now. But at the time, a lot of people were really pissed off that you're kicking the anthill. We don't like it because we're comfortable with the way the anthill is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Very,
you
very,
can't always
very
do
true.
what you want, but sometimes you will with time. So
That's
here we
right.
are. We're in time.
That's right. And if you don't watch out, you will FAFO. You know what I'm saying? Especially under.
Yeah. Well, I got some children who did that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I don't know what to tell you.
Well. And on that, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into attorney at law, Mr. Dale Schafer. Dale's been an attorney since the Reagan administration. He has represented physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, cops, corrections officers, and for the last 25 years, he has specialized in cannabis law. He served a 5-year federal prison sentence for helping medical marijuana patients and managed to save his law license. He is blunt. He doesn't smoke them, though, because they're ratchet, they're nasty, and they turn your teeth yellow and other things yellow, but he is honest and unconcerned with public opinions, your opinion, and he wants to identify as anything else's opinion. And he will show you and tell you how he can defy gravity by pissing up a rope. That's right, it is your favorite Tio Loco, and you can now find him at his own law office, at the law office of none other than Dale Schafer.
Morning, everybody. It's Tio Loco and Jason's favorite Pistachio. You got to be able to laugh at yourself, folks, if you want to live to be my age.
Constant.
Okay, I'm just telling you right now. You know, because we're human and we sometimes do and say stupid shit and laugh at yourself a bit. Okay, my story today comes out of Marijuana Moment, and it was written yesterday by Kyle Yeager. And like you, Jason, you read Marijuana Moments and you wonder, okay, are you really hard enough or fair enough? And
Lefty.
I don't know. I don't know Kyle. But the subject is about weed and guns. Okay, marijuana, cannabis, whatever, and guns. All right, and the headline is ACLU attorneys confident Supreme Court will strike down gun ban for marijuana users after oral arguments next week. Now, I have covered this issue, and I think it's Monday when we're going to have oral arguments. So hopefully it's going to get national attention like some of the other bigger issues that are out there. When I read this, the word confident I think it's too strong a term, because what it really says is we're like cautiously optimistic. And to sort of frame this problem, the Supreme Court in the case called Bruin, and I can't give you the exact date, but we've covered this. They said, look, if we're going to talk about the Second Amendment and how we're going to handle it, we're going to go back to 1791 when it was actually enacted, look at the meanings, and as we go forward, what did society do with guns and people who were using substances might make them a public health or safety risk. That's sort of the framework that they said, we're not going to look what we're doing today, we're going to go back and look how it's been handled in the past. So what we have here is a federal law that says if you are an unlawful user of a controlled substance, you can't transport guns, you can't move them. And there are rules that the Supreme Court has developed of how we look at this. And I think that this is what we would call strict scrutiny. You have a Second Amendment right to have guns. And Second Amendment reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay. The first part of this, the well-regulated militia, people have done a lot of things with it. The second part is what I call the active constitutional language, because it either grants authority to the government or it restricts authority to the government. This one says the government cannot infringe on your right to keep and bear arms. And that's the starting point. There's historical reasons for this and blah, 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 but that's where we started in 1791. Okay, so in the late 1960s, Lyndon Johnson signed a bill that restricted your gun rights if you were an unlawful user of controlled substances. And this came about in a period of time where John Kennedy had been murdered. Mm-hmm. And then we move forward to 1968. Martin Luther King's murdered, Bobby Kennedy's murdered. There's a lot of things going on. And oh, by the way, people were showing up at Black Panther meetings strapped with assault rifles. Okay? And so some butts were puckering.
Yeah, I bet.
The Congress finally took some action. They passed a law called 18 U.S.C. 922. And in Section G of subsection 3, it says it shall be unlawful for any person who is an unlawful user of or addicted to any controlled substance to ship or transport in interstate or foreign commerce or possess in or affecting commerce any firearm or ammunition or to receive any firearm or ammunition which has been shipped or transported in interstate or foreign commerce. Okay. That's the law we're talking about here. So this is not Hunter Biden, chasing hoes and packing his nose with coke. This is some guy who's got a medical marijuana card, okay, and he clearly uses cannabis for what are considered state-level legitimate medical purposes. And, okay, he also possesses a gun. Now, the big problem with this is that if you get caught using, being an unlawful user in possession of a gun, this is heavily criminalized. And we're talking about 10 years, $250,000 fine. This is not a slap on the wrist. This is a kick in the ass. They take away your gun rights and they throw you in prison and basically throw the key away for a while. Okay, it's a serious problem. And I'm a veteran, and a lot of my veteran friends are concerned because they don't want their name on the books anywhere of using cannabis, because if somebody, finds out they're possessing a gun and connects the dots, we've got some problems here. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is not universally enforced. Let me just tell you, when they rolled in on me, okay, I clearly was growing weed. I had, weed in my closet, and right there I had my guns, ammunition and stuff was secured someplace else. But when they rolled in on me, clearly took my weed, didn't take my guns. I was never charged with a gun offense, even though this law is on the books. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's clear. They're claiming that I was breaking federal law, which almost by definition makes me an unlawful user of these substances. They didn't do it to me. I don't think that my prosecution was political. I thought that would be too political for them. They didn't do that. This poor schmuck, not so much. Okay, but we've got some problems of enforcement. Okay, so what we have here is a basic fundamental constitutional right. Okay, and the government has a policy or they're taking actions which violate that right. What the court does is it looks at this and uses what we call the strict scrutiny test. And the strict scrutiny involves fundamental rights and important governmental action need to be taken. And here's some of the key to this. It's presumed to be unconstitutional until the government meets its burden. You've got to demonstrate a compelling state interest. It's got to be narrowly drafted to meet that compelling state interest. And it's got to be found to be the least restrictive means to do it. This is strict scrutiny. So I say all that to sort of frame what we're looking at here. Look at this article. This guy's name is Brandon Buskey. He's a director at the ACLU for their criminal law reform project. Okay. They're one of the active attorneys, and I expect he's probably going to be making some statements. NRA is also backing this position. We take a look at this law. On its face, it's vague and ambiguous. Okay. If we use the Bruin test and go back and look at historically how we handled people who used substances, okay, that were intoxicating, you had to be, a hopeless drunk where we just couldn't stop you from drinking. So you're a threat to everybody. We're going to take your guns away. Historically, that's how they dealt with people who used intoxicating substances. If you take a look at this law, it just says if you're an unlawful user or addicted to a controlled substance. Okay, well, the addicted probably is more like historically how we handled the drop-dead drunk who just didn't stop drinking. Okay, that I think people understand. But an unlawful user, okay, what does that mean? And what's the historical context? I mean, if they didn't really have illegal substances in 1791, okay, it didn't exist. No one thought about that. You could certainly buy laudanum, which was a mixture of opium, and people got addicted to that. I mean, these things were around, but they weren't illegal. Okay? So if we have these terms, an unlawful user, okay, that one is vague and ambiguous. Okay, so, right, if you're going to take someone's liberty away and charge them up to $250,000, the law requires that it be very clear. Okay, what is it that you're doing that violates the law? And this one's not, okay? Even from a gut feeling, when Hunter Biden's packing his nose with cocaine, okay, and lying on his applications for getting a gun, I think people look at that differently than someone with a medical marijuana card who's taking a gummy at night to sleep, and you're going to take his gun rights away. This, historically, it should be sent back to Congress to be more clear. We have vague and ambiguous problems here, okay? But then we take a look at as it's applied here, it's applied to something that is legal at the state level all over the country. Okay, so we have confusing public policies, okay? And so you take a look at this strict scrutiny. Is this, as you apply this, is this the least restrictive way to do this? Can we be clearer on what this means? Okay, and that's sort of the pissing match here. And this guy, Brandon, what did I say, Bursky? What he's hoping is that the government, based upon the signals that's sent up from Bruin, is going to look at that the same way. Is that, people don't look at weed the same way they do with fentanyl or heroin. So let's stop that.
Yeah.
And you be more clear on this before we take someone's gun rights away. Can we be more clear here? And please come in with a historian telling us that they used to handle people the same way that we're handling people today when they use an intoxicant. I don't think that really can do that with a straight face. The DOJ historically wants to support the constitutionality of laws. It's pretty clear. But, with a straight face, are they going to really say that we used to take your guns away if you had a shot of whiskey with your buddies? Okay. No, they didn't do it. That's a historical comparison that makes sense. But to try to come up with new categories and say, well, now this justifies taking away a fundamental constitutional right we all have, keep and bear arms. Second Amendment, it's not ambiguous, okay? You can't infringe on that. The government's infringing on it here. They prove that, that there's really an important governmental need to do this, okay, and that we are doing it in the least restrictive way. I don't think they can do that with a straight face, but we'll see. And we'll follow this because this is important to people.
Yeah.
And when they went after me, they stuck me with a felony, which under this gun control law means that, I can't have a gun anymore, even though I never hurt anybody. I did everything according to state law. It doesn't matter because this particular federal gun law, if you're a felon, you're done. Okay. And even that's historically not supportive, because historically, when you got out of prison, they gave you your guns and told you have a nice day. There wasn't supervised release. There wasn't ankle monitors, all this shit. They gave you your guns and told you, don't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how they would handle that, but this one seems pretty clear to me. And I don't want to think that I'm just wishing and hoping here because I have personal vested interest in this, okay, or my friends do. I don't think it is logical and it doesn't follow the rules we have set up. I'm hoping the Supreme Court tells him, nah, this is unconstitutional at a minimum as it's applied to people who use cannabis that's legal under state law, and get away from this. We'll see. I'm going to, what do you have to say about this, Jason?
Well, Dale, I find it super, super interesting that the ACLU has come out and said basically that the federal government doesn't have a case at this. So I'm expecting a big win in the Supreme Court. Like we may see, you know what I'm saying, a 7-9 member all the way. I don't think anyone will vote against it. I think that there may be some members that abstain from voting, you know what I mean? But I don't think anyone can actually vote against the merits and vote alongside the federal government's policy on this, being as it is, especially with the case, the case history that you just eloquently outlined, Dale. I don't see how any Supreme Court justice could do that unless they took some paper envelope full of $100 bills, you know what I'm saying, to have a particular opinion one way or the other. And so with that said, the fact that the ACLU is coming out, I think this might be the first time I've ever seen the ACLU come out for gun rights. This might be a monumental situation in the first place, because usually it's the ACLU that's trying to take away people's gun rights and this and that, as opposed to saying that people should have the rights to bear arms. And so, oh my God, I feel like the sky should be falling right now, the fact that the ACLU has came out and said this. And so again, I don't see how the Supreme Court can vote against this. I just don't.
Well, and the ACLU and the NRA definitely make strange bedfellows.
Exactly. They're both on the same page on this.
Okay. I've been saying this for several years now. The Supreme Court is signaling that they're going back. They're going to leap back to a period of time, and I think before the Great Depression and development of the administrative state, some call the welfare state. You can pick your pejorative here. But I think they're going back there, right? And so a lot of the things that have happened since that time, I think are poised to be knocked down. I'm hoping this is one of them, because what I lived through, I was in high school when this law was passed, okay? And I had witnessed the Kennedy assassination, the King assassination, the Bobby Kennedy assassination. I also witnessed the news reports where they showed, these Black Panthers showing up they're feeding the kids, but we're here with our guns. And I can tell you what we saw in my community, is that the white working folks that I lived around, their butts puckered. We don't like this. A lot of things went into these gun control laws that people thought, oh, we're doing a good thing here. Well, I don't know about that. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't think in looking back in history, this was really a good thing. It was done for reasons that may have thought were justified at the time, but with passage of time, this is just not justified anymore, Jason.
I agree.
Pure and simple. And one of the first things we had to learn when I was going to law school is that, whether we like it or not, the Supreme Court can be a political body. Okay. If they decide the way we want, they're great. If they don't, then they're subject to this, that, and the other influences. I'm a skeptic, but I'm hopeful that the Supreme Court will continue to look at the law and, read the Constitution, because that's really what this is all about. Is we have a horrible form of government, except for every other form of government out there. In which case, ours is the best. Why
Ours
is it the best? Because we learned from millennium of people killing each other that we needed to have some rules. Keep the government out of your business, give the people, and to be able to stop the government when it does something we don't like. That's what this is about. And I'm hoping that the public can see that by sticking to this outline, the Constitution, and really sticking to it, that we have the best chance of having our government go on.
Yep.
Okay, because it really is the best form. It's a constitutional republic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not a democracy.
Exactly.
The Congress now is democratic, but when they set this thing up, the only part of our government was democratic was the House.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2 years, and they know that you got to be careful because you can get some nut jobs.
Yep.
The Congress.
We had a few of them.
2 years. Well, eventually, the senators are are elected, and sometimes you get some knuckleheads in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the check and balance of the chief executive can veto the bills, and the Supreme Court can go, hang on, putting the outline of the Constitution over this, and you're over the line, get out of here. That's how it's supposed to work. It gets messy, it's slow, but it's the best form of government, in my view, that's ever been invented.
It is.
And we have a republic, we can keep it.
You're so right about that, Dale, and it's all about we, the people, as well as weed for the people. And I think we, the people, are going to get our weed and gun rights after the Supreme Court hears this and finally comes to a decision. And I'm expecting that decision to come sometime this year, Dale.
I'm cautiously optimistic. See, we can some rights back.
I'm with that. And on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Rescheduling cannabis, which was classified as more dangerous than fentanyl. Trump's action will destroy the cartel's illicit black market, expand medical research, and ensure seniors and veterans safely receive the care they need. Thank President Trump for delivering on another America First promise.
And we are exactly, and we are back. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com. And please mark your calendars for March 15th at 3 p.m. as Catalyst and the whole team are going to be up there protesting all these pedophiles outside of the Man's Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. So make sure that you mark your calendars. That's right, March 15th at 3 p.m. Make sure that you get out there, get your little protest on, you know what I'm saying, and all of that. And also, too, this Saturday, I am going to be speaking in West Hollywood at the West Hollywood City Council chambers. We're doing a whole cannabis summit all day over there. So make sure you come out, get your tickets, you know what I'm saying, come out. I'll be talking, I think, at 11 a.m. My good friend Fiona Ma, our current state treasurer, she's going to be talking at 10. And looking forward to seeing her, saying hello and catching up a bit. And on that, we'll see you right after this next commercial.
Under President Trump, America is back. Trump's delivered the largest tax cut in history, putting more money in our pockets and restored America's economic dominance. Promises made, promises kept. Now it's time to fulfill another promise from President Trump and reschedule cannabis, which supports over 400,000 jobs and creates billions of dollars in economic growth. Reschedule cannabis and stack another win, Mr. President. America First Agriculture Action, Inc. is responsible for the contents of this advertising.
If someone got their paperwork, they're getting.
Disagree.
Yep.
Don't disagree.
Exactly. Well, some good news, some more good news today. A new Louisiana bill would establish adult use cannabis pilot program through 2030, Dale. That's right. A new Louisiana bill filed today would authorize the sale of cannabis to everyone 21 and older through a temporary state-run pilot program that would begin in 2027 and run through 2030. House Bill 373, filed by Representative Candace Newell, a Democrat, would establish the Adult Use Cannabis Pilot Program Regulation and Enforcement Act, creating a limited rollout of adult use cannabis sales designed to test the feasibility of a permanent program. The measure has been referred to the House Health and Welfare Committee, and under the proposal, the Louisiana Department of Health would oversee the cultivation, processing, transportation, and retail sale of adult use cannabis, rather than creating an entirely new licensing structure. The bill limits participation to the state's existing medical marijuana operators and current therapeutic marijuana retailers retailers would be allowed to designate one retail location per region to participate in the pilot, and existing licensed cultivators would be eligible to supply both medical and adult use products. Sales would be restricted to individuals 21 and older, and all products would be tracked through the Louisiana medical marijuana tracking system. Testing and laboratory requirements would mirror those already in place for the medical marijuana program, and the department would begin issuing pilot permits on January 1st, 2027, and permits would be valid for 1 year and subject to a $5,000 annual renewal fee for each participating retail location, cultivator, and laboratory. For the duration of the pilot program, which would run from January 1st, 2027 through January 1st, 2030, cultivators participating in the program would pay a 3.5% fee on gross wholesale sales of both medical and adult use cannabis, and those choosing not to participate would continue to pay the current 7% fee on medical marijuana sales. Revenue collected would be deposited into the state's Disability Services Fund, and the bill also clarifies that while medical cannabis sales would remain exempt from state and local sales tax, adult use retail sales would be subject to applicable sales and use taxes. And if approved, the pilot would serve as a testing period to evaluate whether Louisiana should adopt a permanent adult use marijuana system after the mid-2030s, you guys. Well, look at this. This is great news for Louisiana. Sounds like Mardi Gras is going to be pretty lit, Dale. What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, it's a novel approach. I guess the devil's in the details.
Well,
Hope that they have going to look at other places where they rolled out adult use and looked at the problems they had and have tried to anticipate them.
The details were fairly clear, though, Dale. The details were fairly clear in all this of how it would operate overall. But the thing about it to me is, like, if they're going to create a pilot program and they're going to run it from 2027 through 2030, that's 3 years. They're not going to roll that back at the end of it. They're going to be like, oh, this is great, and they're going to possibly expand it, or they're going to leave it be and just copy and paste that legislation and make it permanent. I don't see them being able to say, hey, you know what? We have adult use cannabis, and now all of a sudden we're gonna take it back. I don't see that.
Well, you're right. That's the argument of the camel's nose under the tent, things like that.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay. But I hope they understand that what you're doing is you're taking business away from the trap. Okay. And if you can't compete with the trap's going to win. So whatever it is that you do here with rules and regulations, be mindful. If you make it too costly and difficult, then the trap's going to win.
$5,000. $5,000 per license per year. I don't think that's too bad out of the question.
I think they've learned. Well, what's the big distributor license in California is $650,000 to renew. Okay. So yeah, I think that's better. And the tax is what, 3.5%?
3.5%.
California, well, it's 15%.
Well,
and alcohol is between 1% and 3%.
Let me go back. Let me go back to it, because how I understood it, cultivators participating in the program would pay a 3.5% fee on gross wholesale sales of both medical and adult use cannabis. And those choosing not to participate would continue paying the current 7% fee on medical marijuana sales. So it sounds like it's going to go from 7 to 10.5%, Dale, as far as the tax, because it's saying that if you choose not to, then you would still pay the current 7% fee. And it says cultivators participating in the program would pay a 3.5% fee on gross wholesale sales of both medical and adult use cannabis. So I'm imagining that that's going to be a 10.5%. I could be wrong, but that's when I read it, that's how I interpret it.
Yeah. Okay, and here's where the attorneys, go like, okay, it's the lawyer's full employment.
Yeah.
Yep. What you get from these summaries is not what the statute says. That's the source material to go back to. And clearly, you need to define your terms. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Okay, what are the boundaries of all of this? Okay, is it based on any assumptions that I argue are called emotional truths about weed? You're trying to do something because you believe in something that's not factually true. And can we move forward? Because the trap's like, you guys don't get this straight, around the corner, I got a bag for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where government needs to be focusing. We have real trap markets in every city. I mean, I don't know where you think you can go in the United States and not be able to buy a bag of weed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's there. Okay. Now, what they've tried to do is say, oh, this is a drug. We're going to tax the hell out of it and all that kind of stuff. And it turns out that when you do that, people are going to go to the market. They don't have to pay that much, the trap or in the hemp market. You want this? There's the message. It's like a big sign on the freeway. If you overtax and overregulate this, black market wins.
Yep.
How hard is this? They just don't seem to be able to control themselves, Jason. And that's where it takes people looking out and asking questions about, what does this mean? And then why are you doing it this way as opposed to some other way? And stay on top of them.
Yep.
And I hope that they can do that, because this is better than going in and meeting and working out rules where attorneys go, well, here's a side door, here's a back door, I'll find my way around this. And what have you really accomplished? But I think you're right. Once it gets started, they're not going to take this away. It's going to make money.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly, Dale. I'm with you, Dale. They're not going to take it away. And on that, we're going to take it away, and we're going to go to our next commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knee still bothering you, man?
Yeah, I left one, and I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where am I even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Ah, yes, and we are back. And Dale, I have two more stories for you. A Connecticut bill would require marijuana workers to receive full minimum wage and bar counting tips toward pay, Dale. I think you're going to like this. I think I might even like this. A Connecticut lawmaker has filed legislation that would prohibit marijuana businesses from counting tips toward employee wages, requiring all cannabis workers to be paid the full state minimum fair wage. Senate Bill 352 was introduced today by the Labor and Public Employees Committee. The measure was titled An Act Concerning the Minimum Fair Wage and Persons Employed at Cannabis Establishments. Under the proposal, in no event shall the Labor Commissioner recognize as part of the minimum fair wage gratuities for persons employed at cannabis establishment, dispensary facility, or producer. It further states that any marijuana business that pays or agrees to pay an employee less than the minimum fair wage would be in violation of state law. And the bill amends Section 21A-421D of the general statutes and would take effect on October 1st of 2026. The stated purpose for the legislation is to clarify that persons employed at cannabis establishments are to be paid the minimum fair wage. SB 352 has been referred to committee to the committee that originally introduced it. You guys, look at that, Dale. Some good news coming out of Connecticut. And, I don't understand where employees get the thought that their tips would be included in their wages. As far that is crazy. That is crazy talk. I don't understand who is doing that or where that comes from, but I'm totally against that. Pay people their wages. Their tips are their tips. You want the employees to retain their tips for the fact of them doing a good job for the customers that are actually making you money as a business owner. And you want to make sure that they're given the best service, and that's how they're rewarded with tips. And so stop trying to get into people's tip jar. Stop it. What are you going to say, Dave?
Well, when you set up a business and you start running your numbers,
Yeah.
you have to include your employee cost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're right. If the state says the minimum wage is whatever, $15 an hour, well, let's pick a number that's reasonable. Okay. That's what you put into your budget. That's where your profit margins start when you pay all this stuff off. Okay. And you're right. If people are going to come in and you do a good job for them and they stuff a few bucks in your tip jar, that's not the employer's money. Okay? That's going to the people who are, out there giving you service. I've got, my granddaughter works, she manages a Chili's restaurant. Okay? And this is a problem that they have there. You've got to pay people a minimum guaranteed wage. Their tips becomes a problem. I approved of Trump's proposal. Let's not tax tips. And the way this economy sets up, or you're a tip economy, is that it's not good for the workers. Okay, employers will take advantage of that, like it looks like here. They're going to include your tips in what we're paying you as your basic wage. I don't agree with that. Okay, I don't think that should be allowed. But again, that takes regulations. It takes bureaucracies. And it's just too bad people couldn't be honest. You're a business owner, you understand this.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pay someone $18 an hour as a minimum wage or whatever it is here in California. What you pay them. And if people are coming in and throwing tips at your employees and they're doing a great job, that's advertising building your business. Okay? It shouldn't be considered your money as the employer.
Yep. Exactly right. Exactly right. Even the president has no tax on tips. So why are these employers trying to go into these employees' cookie jars and raid their tips? It's not nice. It's not a good policy. I'm not for it.
I agree. And the employment situation for people that work in the cannabis industry is much better than some of the complaints we used to get. Some guy would make women trim weed and stupid shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've come a long ways. But this is an industry. These are workers, and reasonable employment laws should control here. And you figure out your nut based upon what it costs for labor.
Mm-hmm.
Be realistic about that. And I don't see a problem, because if you don't have good employees, your business is going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So it's to your advantage to have well-trained, courteous employees. And if the people that come and buy product from your business want to stuff a few bucks in their tip jar, you should applaud that.
Yep, exactly.
That'll keep your employees happy, and then they'll be better to the customers. And
exactly right.
It's a good cycle to be in.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Dale. And I have one final story. And Dale, it seems like we had almost like all 6 good stories today. Because this last one I think is fantastic too. This might be the first time that we've ever have had 6 good stories on the show. It might be. I don't know. Maybe there was one other day, possibly, but because a Virginia House approves medical cannabis access bill for terminally ill patients with a 97-1 vote, Dale. Wow, Virginia. A proposal to ensure terminally ill patients can continue using medical cannabis while receiving care in hospitals and other health facilities was given approval today by the Virginia House of Delegates. Senate Bill 332, sponsored by State Senator Barbara Favola, a Democrat, passed the House today by a vote of 97-1. The measure had already cleared the Senate unanimously, but because the House adopted a substitute version, the bill must return to the Senate for a concurrence vote before being sent to Governor Glenn Youngkin. But that's Governor Glenn Youngkin's not the governor, so why are they saying that? That's weird. It's Abigail Spanberger. The House substitute amends state law to explicitly protect employees of hospitals, nursing homes, hospice facilities, and assisted living facilities from prosecution when they store, dispense, or administer medical cannabis oil to patients with valid written certification. It also requires the Virginia Department of Health to convene a work group to examine how medical cannabis can be safely provided with medical care settings and to develop written guidelines for its use. Under the substitute, the work group must include representatives from hospital and healthcare associations, providers, and hospice professionals, and the group is directed to review any relevant federal guidance and assess how potential changes to marijuana's status under the Federal Controlled Substances Act could affect implementation. A report with recommended guidelines is due to key House and Senate committees by November 1st of 2026. And rather than broadly expanding access, the legislation focuses on ensuring that terminally ill patients who are already authorized to use medical cannabis can continue doing so while receiving care in regulated medical environments without placing healthcare staff at legal risk. If the Senate agrees to the House substitute in an upcoming concurrence vote, the measure will head to the governor for final consideration. Look at that. And I know Abigail Spanberger, she's definitely is going to sign that bill if it gets to her desk. So hopefully the Senate will get it there. They'll agree to this concurrence, and you know, patients in Virginia will be one step closer to having the relief that they need in their last stages of life. What do you have to say, Dale?
Well, I've actually taken care of hospice patients before. But when you get to that point in your life, the people that are caring for them and their families, right? It's like, what can you do to make mom or dad or Uncle Billy comfortable? Right? And what we had of, you know, I'm seeing only part of myself here. Anyway, no one needs to see my face. You can hear what I'm talking about here. We used to use morphine just whenever you needed it. We shoot you, makes you want to puke. Okay. Antiemetic that wasn't all that useful, and weed was much better. And we have certainly slipped. You know, I don't want to. The statute of limitations run, so we used to take people outside and have them burn one in the parking lot, just to get around the hassles. I think most people recognize if you're going to go to a treatment program, you sit down with the oncologist and they run down, this is what we're going to do to treat grandma or whoever until they pass. You ask, okay, well, how can we make sure they're comfortable? Okay, we'll prescribe pain medication, blah, blah, blah. And if they're taking a tincture or an oil, that's when I think they're limiting this, to help them with nausea or other things coming from what they're doing to keep them comfortable. And what's that going to look like? And if they're doing that and they're comfortable and successful, you move them into hospice, you're down to probably less than a week of life. If somebody is that close to death, you're willing to pump them full of morphine, okay, dropping some tincture under their tongue. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This is compassion. That's
exactly
what it should be about. We should get rid of all the hyperbole about it's a gateway drug and stuff like that. Because when I first went into the military, I was trained about this. We had in our books this stuff called Brompton solution, which was heroin and cocaine. So if you're checking out,
you sure that's not a town in LA, Dale? Brompton?
Yeah, well, but this is effectively what Ulysses Grant did. Mark Twain showed up with coca, giving him morphine, and he was giving him cocaine. We got to get your book finished, dude. Checking out. Help you get there. He finished his book. He died a few days later, and nobody gave two shits about it. This is what he needed to do to get to where he wanted to be comfortable to die. And we don't like to talk about people dying. But if you have to think about it and you know someone's dying, it's like, why would you tell somebody they can't do something? It's not hurt else. And protecting the staff, I get that, because I was a corpsman. We were the ones that were on the bottom of the totem pole. You're going to take the risk. You know, you're going to get in trouble. No doctor or nurse who knew what you were doing is going to get in trouble. Well, you shouldn't have that happen anymore. The doctors and nurses say, we got tincture here, whatever. We've got it in the safe or wherever we keep our drugs. We've got an order for it. You fill it, PRN, whatever they want it. You give them a certain number of drops under their tongue. Same order we had with morphine. Okay, when they say they're in pain, here's how much you can give them at a time. Don't kill them, at least not overtly. Okay, and I think most people understand that, you know, if you're going to get into a pissing match about using drugs, this is not the right place to do it. Get out of the way. Leave these grieving families alone. The healthcare professionals try to help them to say goodbye to their loved ones and make them as comfortable as possible. Government should not be in the middle of this. We should protect people here. This is the old Scots-Irish libertarian in me. Get out of my business.
Yeah.
Government, leave us alone.
Yep. That's what it's all about. Get government out of the way, Dale. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's about we the people and weed for the people and all of those things all the way around. You know, this great news coming out. I can't believe we had such a great news day today, Dale. Look, and it was just me and you doing the tango all day.
Blind squirrel finds the nut sometimes, right?
Look at that.
You know?
Look at that, Dale. What a great day, man. What a great day. Thank you so much. Well, and thank you all for getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst Cannabis for helping us keep the lights on. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. And thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media partners Elias and Gabriel. They're somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.